Welcome to The Spirit Said So. I'm your host, Kirby Valladares. I'm here with my friend, Xiomara. Xiomara is a friend of mine who I met through work. We met through the Hispanic Employee Resource Group, and last year we worked together on donating clothes. We did a clothing drive for Hispanic Heritage Month, and it was very successful. You're my guest tonight because we have been talking about the book, The Alchemist. We're going, I'm going into my spiritual journey. I think you're also on your spiritual journey as well. And I guess we'll start right there, so like, where are you in your spiritual journey right now? Like, are you very open-minded? Are you practicing? Like, what's your background?
I feel like I'm still really early in my spiritual journey, and I think I'm really glad that you recommended me reading The Alchemist, especially at this stage of my life, because I still feel like I'm figuring out, like, I guess if we're talking about The Alchemist, I'm in the part of the book where he is in this new foreign land and he's trying to decide whether he's gonna stay or go. And even though I feel like I read that and I was trying to take what applicable to my life, and I really do feel like I'm in that moment right now where I'm like, okay, I feel like I'm committed to being here, and how do I um find the resources around me to kind of guide me this next chapter in my life? And I think um meeting people like you, and there's been other people that I've met too who have told me about their spiritual journey, which has also, by talking to them, also has helped me in my own, and not just spiritual, but perhaps my everyday life too. And so I think I'm still really early, and I love hearing people talk about their own. And I feel like when you talk about yours, it's also really interesting. And I think it also overall helps me too.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I'm very new to it, so for me it's like it's completely feels like my world is kind of changed upside down, right now. So The Alchemist, you mentioned the book Alchemist, and this is something that, I recommended to Siamana to read, and here's my copy of it. I actually did a book club, but I wanted to show the copy of the book that I started
Hmm.
reading because how I got it was pretty interesting.
Hmm.
Um, when I actually was talking to a friend of mine in July, and he told me about the book, and he said this was my favorite book of all time. He's like, I've reread it many times, so I just kind of was like, all right, yeah, I'll put it on my list and I'll check it out at the library. And then in August, I was at the supermarket and there was this guy outside. And you have people who panhandle at the supermarket and they always ask for change or they ask, oh, can you give me $1 or whatever. And this guy wasn't doing that, but he was kind of like just being very friendly. He was just saying hello to everyone. And I was drawn to the guy, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go to the bank. I'm gonna get him some money, and the bank was not far away from there. So I was like, I go. I just his vibe and his energy was just very positive. So I was like, let
Hmm.
me ask him. Let me talk to him first, see if he does need help, and if he does, I'll give him the money. And I did. He was just talking about how he was in between work. He was at the shelter, but he had found a job, and he was at a point where he's like, you know what? I'm gonna start this new job, and I'm gonna get myself back up. And he was very grateful that I gave him money. So then a week later, my wife, was like, "Oh my God, I met this guy at the supermarket. He's so positive. He's got such great energy." And I described him, and she was like, "Oh my God, that's him." And I was like, "Is his name so and so?" And she was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." So I was like, "Here, give him more money." I was like,
Hmm.
"I he made an impression on me." And then he was the person that gave my wife the book. And he
Oh.
apologized and he was like, "Look, the book has some coffee stains on it, but I promise you it's not anything else." And I was just like, "Okay, well, this is my sign for me to read the Alchemist." I was like, "The universe has brought it to me at this point." So you're at that point with the book, right? You didn't finish it yet?
No, 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 I did finish it, but I think that's where I still see myself. And maybe, because when without giving too many spoilers, I guess he does lose his money and he is trying to make the money again. And when I was reading the part, I thought, okay, he's still gonna go pursue his personal legend. But once he sees how much money he made, he was like, "Oh snap! I could go back and have two more times the sheep that I have. Maybe I should go back." And I didn't know that he was still thinking about it. And I think I'm in that stage where some days I'm good and I'm like, "Yeah, no, I'm gonna continue figuring out my personal legend and going down the path of my personal legend that I feel is like by me." um have moved from the Midwest to the East Coast. Uh, but then I have bad days when I'm like, nope, as soon as I have this much money or I'm this stable, I'm gonna go back, and I think, yeah, like I think I have good days and bad days, and I'm trying to balance that and still try to figure out, okay, what was my reason for being over here? And if there's no reason, then what's my bigger reason to go back? Or is there another reason for me to go back? Uh, and yeah, I think that's where like I'm kind of at with where I'm at in my life compared to the book.
Yeah, I think we talked about that. And I was like, I think that's where you are too, as far as your career right now.
Hmm.
Because you have traveled to different cities, and DC is one. I feel like it's kind of your pit stop until,
Hmm.
you kind of get your sign to go and pursue your personal legend, right?
Hmm.
Um, so that's why I was like, I love that part of the book because then I started to kind of see that I was like, where am I in my life? Grew up in New York and then I left to Texas. I kind of feel like that was my trip, where I decided to go. And I remember I wasn't necessarily planning to ever come back, but I knew I was like, if I come back, it's because I something has happened where I know it didn't work out.
Hmm.
And there were times where, it felt like Houston wasn't really going to work out, but I still pushed through. And then eventually I ended up in DC. That's kind of where life has taken me. Career wise, I do feel like I'm more where you are in that aspect
Hmm.
of the book, where I'm
Oh,
there, so it's interesting when you finish the book, kind of see the progression that Santiago takes as he goes along. And again, not without giving out too much of the book, but I still find it very poignant with my spiritual journey too. I kind of also feel like I'm there too as well.
hmm.
Um, the part where he has to showcase, his power with the wind,
Hmm.
to me, I kind of feel like I'm also there, but not quite, like
Yeah.
so I kind of feel like I need to find my mentor, an alchemist.
Hmm.
But I also
Hmm.
kind of feel like that's the belief, the whole spirituality. I think that's kind of where what I feel like that was kind of the big message is like one, he's pursuing it, he's doing it outwardly, but then he has to go within and he has to truly embrace it, and that test was kind of his moment where he had to prove that yes, he has the ability to control the wind and he's able to prove it to
Hmm.
others. Um, so yeah, I was going to ask you. I was like, how did you feel about that point of the book, and how does that kind of tie in with some of the things that you're thinking about as far as spirituality?
No, yeah, I think about that part often because I think that's the one part that maybe I can't make into something tangible. That part does require you to have some sense of belief and maybe your own interpretation. And I think I'm trying to also figure out what my interpretation of that is. Um, yeah, I can understand like how you're at that part, and I see like it does really much match. And I think, yeah, like in the book, he has certain examples where he does kind of like these like very amazing things, and I feel like I've seen you from like what you shared with me and like what you give me as your interpretation and your spiritual guidance. Like I'm like, oh yeah, like I can see you doing these really great things, and so I see how you're at that stage more so. But I don't know what it looks like for me as somebody perhaps that I'm not so deep into my spiritual journey, but perhaps I'm trying to also use it and take it as in like my career, my own life. Like, what is my moment when what like what is my moment where I showcase like everything that I've studied or everything that I've gotten from life, and in a moment where this shows that I'm worthy of continuing. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's something that we've talked about before. So I've done a reading for Xiomara, and she's Chariot. And I think well, her challenge is also Chariot too, which is interesting. So it's a conflict of interest. But
Mhm.
it didn't dawn on me until very recently, which like 2 weeks ago, where I understood your challenge a lot more, a lot clearer. And it was just weird how sometimes it comes to me at random times. But I wasn't really thinking about your chariot at the time, but I remember thinking, I was like, oh, that makes sense. In that your challenge is sometimes, your direction, right? Where
Mhm.
if you hit a barrier, it could kind of really doesn't derail you, but it delays, where you're supposed to go. And I was just like, that's interesting that it would delay you, because these barriers are only meant to kind of like they're just your challenge, but once you overcome it, and I think it's really more about, and we've talked about this, is like the overarching like goal, right? Your personal legend as far as a career, right? So maybe it's
Mhm.
not very clear right now, but it's one of those where it's like these obstacles, as long as you kind of already know like where you're going or like what the end goal is for you, then they're not really the obstacles don't become as daunting as they've become for you before or
Mhm.
how they've been for you before.
No, I think ever since graduating grad school, maybe because it felt like I was in survival mode for a while. So it was really hard to envision like the end goal. And I think now that I'm becoming a little bit more stable and I'm out of like student role, I think I'm trying to understand, okay, what is the end goal here? And I think there's a lot of things that have happened professionally, that has also caused me to question myself because this was the original plan. If this is what it looks like, can I stay here? Is this sustainable? Is this making me happy? And if I can't stay here, what does my future look like now? And I think because of that challenge and that current barrier that has happened, I think I'm still kind of like on flight and fight mode. Like, do I stay? Do I go? Um, and I'm hoping this next year I get more clarity on that. I think this was a hard year for a lot of people. I think it was a hard year professionally to adapt to all the changes that was coming. Um, but I think you also need to um perhaps like think more positively, and if professionally is not what they're not like I can do professionally in my career, and if I need to take a pause here, then what can I do outside of my profession that could in in the future also help me out and propel me forward. Uh, so yeah.
Yeah, and I guess that's the other point I wanted to bring up about the book is that he comes across people that kind of put him in the direction that he's supposed to
Yes.
be going. So I kind of
Mhm.
feel like people are going to be coming in your direction as long as you're aware of like who's coming into your life. And I kind of feel like that's what is going to happen is you're going to find sort of a mentor who's going to kind of be able to give you that clarity.
Or even like the tea shop guy. Like I think like also watching him be in a limbo of like I want to go to Mecca, I don't want to go to Mecca, and I think after meeting him, he kind of says like he's gonna go to Mecca. Like he knew it more than the tea shop guy, and I think they both kind of helped each other. And I definitely feel like there's people right now that I am very thankful that are in my life because when I feel negative or down, they're there to cheer me up and guide me in directions that they feel like would beneficial for me. And it's good to that I do have them. I feel like perhaps I don't feel grateful enough every day about it, but I am on the long run very grateful for those people because, like you said, uh, I think people really help each other and are the reason that we also are. You know, like I wouldn't be where I am today without the mentors that I've had in the past, and I really do think about that.
Yeah, you bring up the good point with the tea shop owner, and when I reread the book, I was like, he stuck out a lot more for me
Mhm.
because I was like, he had he was cranky old man who was set in his ways. He
Mhm.
reluctantly, takes on Santiago to help him at the tea shop, and then Santiago gives him all these ideas, and he's like, let me think about it. And then he finally
Mhm.
does it, but it's like very like he has to process it first, and then he's like,
Mhm.
yeah, all right, let's do it. And then it becomes successful. Like the tea shop, all of a sudden, I mean, the crystal shop
Mhm.
becomes
Oh
very
yeah.
successful. He ends up having tea, so it becomes, yeah, like this tea shop. But then, I guess what I thought was interesting is like I did respect him for not wanting to go to Mecca this time around because I
Mhm.
was like, wow, first time I read it, I was like, well, that's sad. It's like you
Mhm.
always envisioned yourself going or you had this dream of going, but you're not willing to pursue it even when the opportunities have already presented themselves. You're successful, things are running really well. And he talks about omens too, so he was like, Santiago is a good omen. You gotta keep going with it. And I was like, but you decided not to, or well, I guess we don't really know if he does or does not go,
Yeah.
but it's still one of those things where I was like, I was like, all right, I was like, it's true. It's like you go, let's say that was his lifelong dream, comes back, it's like, well, now what? It seems like everything kind of, he built all of this up for years, and now it's like, well, now what do you do next? I read like stuff like The Alchemist, or I read like, or sometimes the reels, like the reels I sent you earlier. We'll discuss them in a few, but I kind of feel like that also helps too, because then it's like, well, I'm not the only one.
Mhm.
And what's interesting is you mentioned, like your friends, and they kind of help you with your mood. And I think the video with the tops, right? The ones that were
Oh yeah,
spinning,
yeah,
the
yeah.
one wasn't spinning, and they threw a bunch of tops, and they were all spinning. And then also they eventually got the one that wasn't moving to spin in the
Mhm.
direction that they were all moving in. So I was like, maybe that's your friends, like they're
Mhm.
kind of that
Mhm.
positive that pushes you to stay in that
Mhm.
positive, even if you're like, nah, I'm not feeling it, but they kind of like
Mhm.
really kind of to get you there. So I kind of feel like that's also like another way to kind of like stay in that vibration, to stay around those who are positive, and it seems like you do that.
Yeah, that's true. And I think at work is probably the hardest sometimes to stay positive. And so I was really lucky to be part of a program where all of us still keep in touch and we can have lunch and at the very least like debrief and vent to each other and then be like, okay, we can go forward with our day. So I do think I'm lucky that I do have work friends and people who check up on me and care about me. And um, yeah, like even today, I woke up not feeling that great, and I ended up calling a friend to video chat, and we talked for hours. And I was like, wow, I feel so much better. And even though, like, sometimes I know that that's going to help me and I don't do it, but I think today me and him were talking about it and I'm like, okay, I just need to call my friends more often too because um I can't like yeah, sometimes we as humans need connections and that's what's going to help us too. And I would want my friends to call me if they're down too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're right about that connection part. It's like
Mhm.
that's something that inherently we all have that connection, but I guess it's who we're connected to. And if you and your friend had a good connection today, you guys spent a lot of time talking, that's usually a good sign, that
Mhm.
things, you can work through things, when you have that support system around you. Yeah, so let's talk about the first video I sent you about
Mhm.
the universe putting you in same situations over and over again
Mhm.
until you figure out your lesson. So do you feel like right now where you are, is that your one of your tests, and do you feel like you've passed it? Like 2025 was the test, and do you feel like you've passed it?
I feel like 2025 was still like um having like my feet on land and become more stable because even when I thought I was pretty stable in my position, something happened and I got wobbly and now I'm in this brand new role. And the universe has put me in similar situations and I keep repeating them. More so on a personal level. Um, and maybe I'm at the part of like if I keep seeing the same things and I keep hearing the same things being told to me, then perhaps I'm putting myself in the same situation. And what can I do to not be in those situations and not keep hearing those same things? and actually learn the lesson that I'm supposed to be learning. Uh, and I think a lot of it is learning how to be more certain with my decisions and how to um, be more confident too, and how to not be afraid to speak up for myself. Uh, I think I is a lot of the lessons that I feel like it goes back to that I keep repeating that I've gone away with not molding those characteristics myself, and now it's just like, well, you really have to do it because I think where I'm at professionally, it's what I have to do, and then also just the city that I'm at. Everybody is at that thing where professionally nobody is being um not that nobody's not being like this, but I think modesty is not gonna get you anywhere, you know. You sometimes have to be your own best advocate, and I think I'm learning how to do that. And I think that's the lesson that I think I'm trying to overcome.
So now that this is another question for you. This is
Mhm.
something where, there's been talks on the spiritual side. There's spiritual TikTok. I didn't know
Oh
anything
yeah.
about spiritual TikTok, until recently, because I wasn't on TikTok, but now I'm on it,
Mhm.
for Spirit Said So. But there's more chatter and YouTube as well. There's a lot of like people talking about how we're as a society or like as a whole,
Mhm.
the humans are moving, they're raising their consciousness, they're raising their vibrations.
Mm,
We're no longer going to be stuck, what they call in a 3D dimension. We're moving more towards 5D.
mm,
um, but I would say, I guess my question to you is like, do you feel that we're moving in a good direction? Do you feel like, a lot of people said that the chaos is actually good because, if Kamala had won, we would have been status quo. Everybody would have been comfortable. There wouldn't really
mm,
be a lot of movement of like, hey, we need to kind of get our stuff together.
hmm.
Um,
I do think I keep hearing a lot of conversations about how historically this has happened. You know, when we do really left thing, then all of a sudden we go back to the right side. And I also hear, yeah, like if the election did turn out the way it did, maybe people wouldn't have gotten it. Maybe we could have also gone much later, and it's better to just deal with it right now than keep pushing it off. Um, and because people keep bringing up these historical moments where it has happened and good things have come from that, I'm trying to stay hopeful that that will be the case too right now, that after this low, we will get build ourselves back up and perhaps come out stronger. Um, or perhaps I think there's also been like a really big shift, and maybe that's why I feel like maybe historically this is a new pattern. Um, and I do think people are becoming more conscious. I think people are trying to recognize perhaps that we need to be more connected as people and not rely so much on big companies and um, yeah, like we have to be more knowledgeable about what we're consuming, both like what we're eating mentally too, spiritually. Because I was just talking about this with my friends. Sometimes I feel like I could just doom scroll so much, and that hurts me mentally and I think spiritually too, because I'm not, I could be using that time to connect better or actually cook myself a really decent meal instead of scrambling together for something, you know? So I think we're becoming more aware of that. I think people don't want to be online as much. People want to be aware of what they're eating better, and people want to actually be putting people in positions that show that they care about the people, you know? So I think there's small things where I'm like, okay, people are conscious, but I think sometimes the news and what we see online makes us feel like there's more hate than love and care.
what's your thoughts on like spirit guides and like your intuition? What's
Hmm.
your thoughts on, like, do you think that we have spirit guides, or do you connect with your spirit guides or your intuition?
Oh, I do feel like. there's spirit guides, but I think I'm more aware of spirit guides that are like in real life, like perhaps like you being a spirit guide or like some of my family members. Like I definitely feel like my uncle is somewhat like connected to me because he kept telling my mom like, "Oh, I keep dreaming about Xiomara and something happened to Xiomara. Like, is she okay?" And my mom was telling me this, and I was like, and it was like when I was like having a really hard time, and I'm like, I can just tell that my uncle can read me even when I don't let him know what's going on in my life. And he also told me like, "Oh, I had a dream that your sister and her boyfriend broke up." And then I asked when they broke up. And there's been other examples where my uncle just gets stuff right based on dreams. And I'm like, wow. And I'm not really I don't like telling my family my business and stuff like that. But they like my uncle and my mom sometimes have these dreams that I'm like, it has to be their intuition. It has to be that they're like kind of somewhat my spirit guides or in some form because I can tell that they know when I'm not having a good time or when big changes are happening in my life, even without me telling them a lot about what's going on in my life. Um, and I definitely have felt like I've met people throughout my life that were similar, where they, even if I don't talk to them anymore, I know that they were a really big help in my life and in guiding me somewhere. And I want to say it was more than just like a mentorship. It felt very spiritual.
But I think you're referring to also kind of like what people have said about soul families, right? Or like
Mm,
we all travel together as a group, right? So like me and you, we know each other from, and we
mm,
decided, hey, we're gonna appear at this point, in our lives.
mm, mhm,
And your uncle, it sounds like, he's kind of like part of that soul family that you travel
mhm,
with. Because it seems like the connection is very strong with your family that
mhm.
he's able to have these dreams. Do you have dreams? Is that something that you
I do sometimes like my uncle telling me that for example, I had a dream about my sister breaking up with her boyfriend and then us finding out that she actually did. Around that time, I was also having dreams about my sister. Not like that she broke up with her boyfriend, but she was in my dreams. And I was just like, this is really odd. I don't dream about her very often. And I even texted my best friend, like, hey, I had a dream about my sister and you. And are you okay? And I think perhaps my intuition isn't as good as my uncle, probably because I know myself with technology sometimes. Um, but I do feel like if I were to listen to them more and actually write down my dreams so I can remember them and retain them, I probably would be better at that. And I do want to work on it because like when I hear my uncle say these things to me, I'm like, wow, like maybe perhaps I could also have this and I need to work on that.
when you called your friend, your best friend, like, was there something going on where she was like, "Oh my God, like, yeah, something is."
Yeah, she actually was in our hometown and her dad had gone through a procedure and so she was kind of on like a little bit of like a family emergency there. And I was like, "Oh, okay. That's interesting." Like and she we keep in contact, but it's hard sometimes. And so that was also like a reminder for myself that I need to check in on my friends more. Um, with my sister, it's a little bit more difficult because like I don't talk to her, but I think seeing her in my dream was probably associated with also her going through something because we were in a car and we were moving somewhere. And then, oh yeah, and then I found out that she's gonna be moving as well. So I was like, oh, something did happen, you know? So yeah, it was, I think I sometimes get dreams like that. And then sometimes I get dreams where like I don't realize that I had this dream until in real life it happens. And I'm like, wow, this is the deja vu. I swear I dreamt about this moment.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that means that you're right where you need to be in life. If you dreamt it
Yeah.
and then it happens, that's what I've now come to realize that when it comes to dreams, that means you're on your life path. Like you're
Mhm.
exactly where you need to be, and that's confirmation that everything's kind of like in place. Thoughts, like, so I guess your thoughts on 2026, do you kind of see what maybe what your destination will look like for 2026? Any thoughts, or you're still kind of like wondering, like what
I think definitely today has got me started into more seriously thinking about 2026. and actually trying to write things down and manifest what I want to see. Um, I think I want to see myself connecting more with people in real life than digitally. I think I've also because I do miss my friends, I stay online a lot and try to connect with my try to connect and stay connected to my friends back home. But I think I need to finance stuff that I need to make friends here and I need to connect with people here. So like even though I have really great work friends, I think I also need to find other types of friends outside of that would also motivate me to get outside my home, get out of my comfort zone. Like I was going rock climbing for a little bit and meeting with that group, but then I kind of started feeling very self-conscious, and so I just need to push myself to that and um, know that I'm at the right place at the right time, and the people that are meant to be are gonna be attracted to my energy, and I'm gonna be attracted to their energy. So I think that that's my goal for 2026, like connect more in real life people.
This was great. I think you were like kind of wondering if you were going to be able to talk the whole time, but I think we did. Thank you for being my guest today, and I'm sure we're going to have more conversations in the future too about this. Because of course, would love to know like how things are progressing in 2026 for you as well. So,
Mhm.
thank you for being my guest, and then yeah, we'll be seeing each other.
Yes, thank you so much, Kirby. This was a great conversation.